Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. Rain had started before we even reached the campsite. It was the kind of rain that slides down tree trunks and rivulets, soaking clothes, backpacks, and shoes, leaving a chill in the bones that no fire can fix. I had been alone in the car for the last hour, the windshield streaked with neon reflections from the gas station we'd passed. My chest still throbbed from the breakup that had landed me here. Abandoned apartments, cold coffee, and empty bed sheets. A divorce isn't just paperwork, it's an identity fracture. The forest smelled of wet pine and dirt, familiar yet foreign. I followed Mara and Devin as they carried the larger tents, their voices muffled under the canopy. I trailed behind, my own tent, a small dome I bought when I thought I needed solitude, bobbing against my shoulder. My hands trembled, cold, or maybe something else. We set up in a clearing where the ground was soft with moss, forming a perfect circle. The ritual was comforting, fire in the middle, tents arranged around it like petals, marshmallows and whiskey for dessert. Mara laughed, her hair wet and plastered to her face. Devin joked about the forest being haunted, and I nodded, too tired to argue. I kept to myself mostly, letting the group's warmth wash over me, without expecting much in return. I told myself I was rebuilding, emotionally, physically, spiritually. The solitude of the forest was supposed to help. Maybe it did. Or maybe it was just hiding the echo of loneliness I carried inside. The first night, the wind carried the sound of something large brushing through the undergrowth. I dismissed it. It could have been a deer, a bear, anything. I went to sleep anyway. I woke around midnight to a creak. A slow, deliberate shift in the darkness. Something didn't fit. I squinted through the rain-smeared tent fabric. A new tent. Not ours. Not brought by anyone in our group. Outside the circle, half hidden by trees and shadow. Its nylon glistened, wet under the moonlight. I froze. My chest tightened. Rain pattered on my tent like an anxious drumbeat. Footsteps? No, too soft, too deliberate. I unzipped the tent flap a fraction. Inside the unknown tent was a sleeping bag, neatly rolled. A flashlight rested on top, pointed toward me. Beside it, a stack of photos, printed, glossy, and recent. Photos of us sitting by the fire, laughing, drinking, oblivious to the camera. Taken tonight. I wanted to scream. My voice lodged somewhere between fear and disbelief. Guys, there's something outside. Devin mumbled from his tent, not opening his eyes. Yeah, right. Mara, awake now, peered out. What are you talking about? I pointed. Her eyes widened. She saw nothing. Devin shrugged and rolled over. Mara whispered my name, concerned. I wanted to believe I was overreacting. Maybe I was. Maybe the rain and shadows were playing tricks. I told myself it made sense. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The tent outside remained there, like a quiet accusation. The next morning, I mentioned it cautiously. Mara frowned. I didn't see anything. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. But the words felt thin. By the second night, I started noticing impossible details. Every time I checked my phone, a new photo appeared, taken from angles only someone inside the circle could reach unnoticed. Every text I sent was read almost immediately, even when the reception was patchy. Then I met her. Her name was Ellen, a solo camper I noticed at the nearby trailhead, her small orange tent just a stone's throw away. She smiled at me when our paths crossed. There was an odd familiarity in the way she looked, like she had stepped out of a half-remembered dream. You look cold, she said, handing me a thermos. Her voice was soft, observing, precise. Rain doesn't agree with your shoulders. I blinked. Thanks. I don't usually share my coffee. She laughed lightly, the sound folding into the patter of rain and distant river hum. Something about her calm made me want to trust again, and I did. Over the next day, we talked by the fire, shared stories. She remembered the name of the little cafe I liked in the city. She asked about my apartment, my routine, my old cats. She knew my favorite whiskey. She remembered songs I didn't mention aloud. I rationalized. I've probably mentioned these things online. Maybe she asked someone else. It's not unusual. But night fell, and the forest never felt safe. The tent outside the circle appeared again, always in the same place. I tried showing Mara and Devin. Mara squinted into the darkness, her flashlight shaking. Marcus, I still don't see anything. Devin muttered something about exhaustion and nightmares. I was alone in my awareness. Alone with it. I started hearing footsteps when no one was walking. Faint, deliberate. Around the circle. Shadows moving just beyond vision. My phone buzzed with unknown numbers sending photos of our camp, the fire, me while I sat right next to the others. I rationalized. Maybe I left the tent zipped open before. Maybe someone is hiking nearby. Maybe I'm paranoid. By the fourth night, Ellen's comfort became my tether. She listened when I whispered my fear. She reassured me with calm eyes, subtle understanding. You're not losing your mind, she said. Some people are meticulous, observant. They notice details others miss. Her words felt like warmth, but the warmth had a weight. Soon, I realized she knew things I had never told anyone. My old nickname, the scar on my forearm from a bike accident, the way I folded my camp chair just so. You know this? I asked, voice cracking. She shrugged, innocently. I pay attention. I notice patterns. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to trust again. Maybe I was overthinking. But then came the photos. They weren't just from outside the tent anymore. They were inside, from angles no human should reach unnoticed. The inside of my tent, Mara's sleeping form, Devin's snoring face. And in every photo, Ellen appeared closer, or someone who looked exactly like her did. I confronted her gently. These are photos. They're from inside my tent. She smiled softly, tilted her head. I told you. I notice patterns. I watch routines. It's comforting to understand someone this way. The warmth was gone. I realized then that observation had become ownership. The nights grew longer, each one an escalation. Tent outside the circle, footsteps around our camp, sleeping bags disturbed, whispers of names in the wind that were mine alone. One night, I woke to the sound of the fire extinguishing itself. Footsteps circled the empty ring. My heart thumped. The tent outside was closer. And this time, Mara and Devin were asleep, oblivious. I zipped open my own tent. The photograph in my hand had been taken from inside the fabric itself. I ran to confront Ellen. She smiled at me as though she had been expecting this. You finally see, she said. I froze. Rain-slicked mud stuck to my boots. Why? Her eyes were calm, observant, precise. Because you let yourself be seen. You wanted to trust. You wanted to believe it was normal to be observed. Some people, they can't resist the intimacy of it. I realized then, Ellen had never been alone. There were layers. Múltiples personas. Other victims, other photos, other patterns. The warmth, the attentiveness, all a carefully constructed trap. I called the police that night. Alvarez. Calm, gray-faced detective. He listened without judgment. Together, we caught her during her next visit. Burner phones, fake profiles, cameras, devices hidden in trees. Every photo, every audio recording, meticulously organized. She smiled quietly as they led her away. You make yourself so easy to study, she whispered. I left the forest the next morning under gray skies. Rain still tapped the leaves, but my chest felt hollow, emptied. I never saw Ellen again, or the others she had mirrored herself as. Back in the city, I lived differently now. Lights in windows, reflections, footsteps, all sharpened senses I never wanted. My phone buzzes with reminders of privacy. My apartment hums and creaks in ways I notice now. I lock doors, double-check devices, question kindnesses. Trust is no longer simple. Attention is no longer comfort. Observation is no longer benign. I think of that circle in the forest, the extra tent, the sleeping bag, the photos, and I understand something haunting. People can construct intimacy like a weapon. They can step into your life so quietly, so perfectly, that love feels like surveillance, and surveillance feels like love. Somewhere, in a circle I cannot enter, she watches again. or someone else. And I know the truth, the one thing that doesn't go away. Being seen is not always being known. Story 2. The first thing he told us was not his name. It was the time. After 2:13 a.m., he said, "You stay inside the tent." He said it gently, like a doctor giving bad news to someone who already knew. Rain fell through the pine branches in thin silver threads. The forest smelled of wet bark, cold soil, and smoke from campsites we couldn't see. Our headlights cut through fog as we stood beside the car, stiff from the long drive, pretending we were not already afraid of the dark. There were 4 of us. Maya, who made jokes when she was nervous. Eli, who checked maps like maps could love him back. Nor, who had brought too many blankets and one knife she insisted was for cheese. And me. I had come because I was tired of my apartment. Tired of the refrigerator humming at 3 a.m. Tired of rain tapping the windows while neon from the cafe downstairs reflected across my ceiling like ambulance lights. Tired of checking my phone for a message from someone who had already taught me how little I meant. My breakup with Adrian had been quiet. That was the cruelty of it. No shouting, no smashed plates, no dramatic ending. Just him sitting across from me in a cafe, soft jazz playing overhead, telling me I was too emotionally heavy, while steam curled from his untouched coffee. After that, silence moved into my life like a tenant. So when Maya said, "Come camping. Trees fix people," I said yes. I wanted to believe her. The ranger stepped out of the fog while we were unloading the trunk. He wore a dark green uniform, rain beating on his shoulders. His face was calm, narrow, almost familiar in the way old photographs feel familiar. He had a flashlight in one hand and a metal thermos in the other. "Evening," he said. "You're at Ridge Site 7? Eli looked up from his phone. "Yeah. How did you know?" The ranger smiled. "Only people stubborn enough to drive this road in weather like this are usually the late arrivals." Maya laughed. I did too, softly. The ranger looked at me then. Not for long. Just enough. "You must be Lena," he said. My hand stopped on the tent pole. The others didn't notice. I had booked the site under my full name, Magdalena. Only Adrian had called me Lena. Only when he wanted me smaller. I told myself the ranger had seen the reservation. It made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. He introduced himself after that. Ranger Vale. No first name. Just Vale. He helped Eli secure the tent. Showed Nor where the bear box was. Told Maya which trail was flooded. Helpful. Calm. Protective. The kind of person you trust because he speaks like he does not need your trust. Before leaving, he paused at the edge of our firelight. "Phones won't work well after midnight," he said. "Fog thickens. Signal bounces. GPS lies." "That sounds fake," Maya said. "It sounds fake until you're walking in circles," he replied. No anger. No performance. Just certainty. Then he looked at all of us. "If you hear someone outside after 2:13, do not unzip the tent. Even if it sounds like me." The fire popped. Nor's smile disappeared. "What happens at 2:13? Ranger Vale adjusted the flashlight in his hand. "People make poor choices when they think they're being called." Then he walked back into the fog. For a while nobody spoke. Only rain on leaves. Water dripping from branches. The distant creak of trees bending in the wind. Then Maya exhaled. "Well, great customer service. Very normal." We laughed because the alternative was listening too closely. By 10, the rain softened. By 11, the forest became a room without walls. The fire burned low. Smoke moved between the trees. Somewhere far off, music played from another campsite, muffled and ghostly, a little jazz tune warped by distance. I checked my phone. 1 bar. Then none. A notification appeared anyway. Unknown number. "He knows why you came here." I stared at it. My chest tightened. Maya leaned over. "What?" "Spam." I locked the screen. I wanted that to be true. At 12:40, we crawled into the tent. The inside smelled like nylon, damp socks, and the lavender hand cream Nor always carried. Our sleeping bags made small whispering sounds every time someone moved. Outside, rain tapped the tent roof. Soft, patient, like fingers. Eli fell asleep first, then Noor. Maya stayed awake beside me, scrolling through old photos even though nothing would load. "You okay?" she whispered. "Yeah, you're lying." "I know." She smiled in the dark. Then her screen glowed. No service. Still a photo loaded. A picture of us from earlier that evening, taken from behind the trees. All four of us beside the car. The ranger standing near me, his face turned toward the camera. Maya stopped breathing. "Did you take that?" "No." The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. 2:13 is not a warning. "It's a habit. Asterisk asterisk." Maya sat up. The tent fabric shifted in the wind. Outside, something cracked. A branch. Maybe. Eli woke immediately. "What was that?" Noor whispered, "Don't." We all listened. Rain. Trees. Our breathing. Then footsteps. Slow. Wet. Careful. They circled the tent once. The ground was muddy. Whoever it was did not try to hide the sound. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. A flashlight passed over the tent wall, turning the fabric pale. Then Ranger Vale's voice came from outside. "You need to move sights." Nobody moved. His voice stayed calm. "Flooding near the west side. You're not safe here." Eli reached for the zipper. I grabbed his wrist. The glow of his watch lit between us. 2:13 a.m. Exactly. The voice outside softened. "Lena." My stomach dropped. Maya's hand found mine. The ranger said my name again. Not Magdalena. "Lena." The zipper trembled slightly. Not from inside. From outside. Noor began crying silently. The voice continued. "I know you don't like being trapped. Adrian used to block doorways, didn't he?" My throat closed. No one in that tent knew that. Not Maya. Not anyone. Adrian had done it casually, with a smile, one arm against the frame. Not violence. Just geography. A small lesson in who controlled exits. I had never told anyone. The zipper stopped moving. Then came a quiet laugh. Not cruel. Almost sympathetic. "You always wait too long to leave." The footsteps moved away. We did not sleep after that. At dawn, the forest looked innocent. That felt obscene. Mist floated low between the trees. Water dripped from pine needles. Birds called as if nothing had happened. Eli wanted to pack and drive out immediately. Noor agreed. Maya wanted answers. I wanted both. We found Ranger Vale's boot prints around the tent. Deep. Clean. Real. Near the tree line, tied to a branch with orange tape, was one of Noor's scarves. She had packed it at the bottom of her bag. Her hands shook when she saw it. "That wasn't outside," she said. "That was inside my backpack." We walked to the ranger station because fear makes people stupid in organized ways. It was supposed to be half a mile from the site. The trail was narrow, slick with mud, enclosed by dripping branches. Fog moved through the trees in pale sheets. Every sound felt close. My phone buzzed once. No signal. Still one message. "Ask him about the poster." The ranger station appeared through the mist like something abandoned by time. A small wooden building. Dark windows. Peeling green paint. A flagpole with no flag. The door was locked, but one window had been left open. Maya said, "Absolutely not." Then climbed in first. Inside, dust covered the counters. Old maps curled on the walls. A dead radio sat beside a stack of paper logs. The air smelled stale, damp, electrical. Eli found the bulletin board. Missing hikers. Trail notices. Weather warnings. And one old poster, yellowed at the edges. The photo showed a man in a green park uniform. Calm face. Narrow jaw. Eyes that seemed to know the camera was temporary. My body went cold before my mind understood. Missing, Ranger Elias Vale. Last seen, October 18th, 2009. Black Hollow Forest Service Road. Time of last radio contact, 2:13 a.m. Maya whispered, "No." The face on the poster was the ranger from last night. Not similar. Not close. The same. Only the photo was 17 years old. And he had not aged. nor backed into a shelf. Metal cans rattled to the floor. The sound exploded through the room. Then the radio clicked. Dead radio. Dusty radio. No power cord. Static breathed through it. A voice came through. Ranger Vale. You shouldn't have gone looking. Eli grabbed the radio and threw it against the wall. The static stopped. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because panic has its own logic. Ranger Vale's voice entered my ear, warm and close. Lena, listen carefully. I couldn't speak. You are with people who will run when frightened. You know that. Adrian ran. Your father ran. Everyone leaves when you become inconvenient. Maya stared at me. Her face changed. Not with judgment. With horror. He knew too much. Too much. You don't have to be embarrassed, he said. I don't judge the things people survive. That was the worst part. How gentle he sounded. How perfectly he placed the knife without making it look like a weapon. I hung up. In the back room of the station, we found the first camera. Then another. Then a drawer filled with burner phones. Maps marked with campsite numbers. Printed social media profiles. Reservation forms. Photos. Us at the gas station. Us in the cafe before leaving the city. Me standing outside my apartment in the rain, looking up at my own window. I felt something inside me detach. Ranger Vale was not a ghost. That would have been easier. Someone had become him. Someone had taken a missing man's face, name, uniform, and tragedy, and used them like a mask. In a locked cabinet, Eli found more posters. Other missing people. Other years. Other campers. Beside them were notes written in careful block letters. Subject responds to guilt. Subject isolates under stress. Use familiar name. Do not threaten first. Offer protection, asterisk asterisk. Protection. That was the costume. A floorboard creaked behind us. We turned. Ranger Vale stood in the doorway. Wet from the rain. Flashlight off. Still smiling. Maya screamed. He lifted one hand, gentle as a teacher calming a class. I told you not to leave the tent. Eli stepped forward, holding a rusted fire extinguisher. The ranger looked at him kindly. You need to be brave in front of them. I understand. Then to Nor. You're calculating the window. It sticks. Then to Maya. You'll joke if I give you 3 more seconds. Finally, he looked at me. Lena already knows what this is. My voice barely came out. You're not Vale. His smile thinned. No, but he taught me something. You killed him? No, he said, almost offended. I listened to what people needed him to be. Sirens sounded faintly in the distance. For 1 second, his face changed. We had called before entering the station. Maya had sent our location when 1 bar appeared. The ranger understood at the same time I did. His eyes moved to the back door. Eli threw the fire extinguisher. It hit the wall beside him with a heavy crack. Enough. We ran. Through the back room. Through the open window. Into rain and branches and mud. Behind us, he did not shout. That frightened me more. We heard him walking. Not running. Walking as if he knew the forest would return us to him. The police found us on the service road 20 minutes later. Maya was barefoot, nor was shaking so hard she could not speak. Eli kept saying he had the same face, again and again, like repetition could make it false. They arrested him near the old fire tower before sunset. His real name was Daniel Crow, former seasonal volunteer, son of a woman who had worked dispatch the year Ranger Elias Vale vanished. He was 9 when Vale disappeared. He grew up inside that story, then he learned to live inside it. The resemblance was real enough in rain and fear. Helped by age, posture, uniform, hair dyed gray at the temples, and the kind of confidence people mistake for authority. He had spent years studying campers before they arrived. Reservation databases, public posts, dating apps, metadata from photos, old interviews, leaked passwords. He learned wounds the way other people learn trails. Then he appeared at dusk, kind and careful, warning them against the exact danger he created. The 213 rule was his ritual. The time Vale made his last radio call. The time Crow began every performance. Police found equipment in the ranger station. Cameras, trackers, voice recorders, signal jammers. A laptop full of folders named after people who had come to the forest wanting to disappear from their lives for a weekend. Most survived. Some never reported anything. A few had gone missing. The investigation did not give clean answers. Real life rarely does. Ranger Elias Vale was never found. Not then. Not after. Sometimes I still think about the poster. That calm face. That frozen year. How easily grief can become a costume when nobody protects the dead from the living. I returned to the city changed. My apartment still hummed at night. Rain still tapped the windows. Neon still reflected in the glass until my own face looked like someone watching from outside. But I no longer trusted gentleness without boundaries. I no longer mistook being known for being safe. There are people who learn your pain so they can hold it carefully. And there are people who learn it so they can press exactly where you bruise. The forest taught me that fear does not always arrive with a raised voice. Sometimes it wears a uniform. Sometimes it carries a flashlight. Sometimes it tells you the rules in a calm, protective tone. And sometimes the person warning you not to step into the dark is the reason the dark has been waiting. Story 3. Rain had begun earlier, thin and hesitant, tapping the tent like tiny drums. The forest smelled wet and alive. The fire we built sputtered against the wind, its orange glow trembling across the dark shapes of the trees. I sat close to the warmth, shoulders hunched, coffee mug pressed between my hands. My chest felt tight, heavy from everything I'd left behind in the city. An apartment too quiet, an empty bed, memories of arguments I replayed like music I hated. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to leave my safe bubble of isolation. But something in me craved distance, space to breathe. There were 4 of us. Me, Elena, Marcus, and Liam. Elena had this uncanny attentiveness. She noticed the way I shook my hands when I was nervous, how I flinched at the first crack of a branch in the dark. She never judged. She just understood. Her voice was calm, quiet, like a melody that didn't demand attention. Marcus and Liam joked, occasionally nudged each other with humor, trying to keep the night light. But I stayed quiet. I wasn't good at light anymore. The first time I heard it, I thought it was a deer. A branch snapping just outside the firelight. But then the sound repeated, soft, deliberate footfalls circling the fire. I froze. Elena, did you hear that? My voice was barely more than a breath. She nodded slowly. I did. Maybe it's just animals. I wanted to believe it. Maybe I was overthinking. The steps stopped whenever someone shone a flashlight toward them. Nothing. Just the black forest. A fog rolling between the trunks. Neon reflections of the fire danced on wet leaves. I told myself it was nothing. It made sense. Forests were full of unseen things. My imagination was probably still frayed from my last breakup. But then the steps changed. We moved around the fire, shifting logs, reaching for marshmallows, adjusting sleeping bags, and the footfalls copied us exactly. 1 step for each step. A pause when we paused. A lean when we leaned. I swallowed hard. I don't like this, I whispered to Elena. Neither do I, she admitted, but her tone was steady. Stay calm. We didn't speak much after that. The fire crackled. Rain tapped a rhythm on the canvas of our tent. Branches creaked like bones. Somewhere in the dark, a branch broke, closer this time. I shone my flashlight to the left, then right, then across the clearing. Nothing. The beam cut through the mist, reflecting off wet bark, sparkling on puddles. But the footsteps moved. We couldn't see them, but we could hear them. And here is enough when fear is patient. Later, when the wind blew harder, I saw shadows, impossible shadows, that mimicked Marcus's stance, Liam's gestures, Elena's habitual tuck of hair behind her ear. They paused when we paused, stepped when we stepped. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't imagination. I told myself it made sense. I repeated it like a mantra. I wanted to believe it. By the second night, the figure was closer. I glimpsed movement beyond the trees, mirrored by my reflection in the lens of the flashlight. Marcus laughed nervously. Probably another camper. No one else is in this forest, Elena said softly. The steps began responding to whispers, to coughs, to the scrape of logs. Every small sound we made, it replicated. A mirror of us in darkness. I wanted to leave. I told myself it was paranoia, but the forest had swallowed all routes. My phone had no signal. I was 100 miles from help, 100 miles from safety. Then came the impossible detail. I noticed a small branch lying by the edge of the clearing. Marcus had shifted it earlier, absent-mindedly. I blinked. The same branch was now shifted again, exactly to match his earlier position, moments after he moved it. Elena caught my eye. "It's learning," she whispered. I didn't understand. Learning? The forest was alive, maybe. But intelligent? Patient? Observing? When we huddled around the fire, the steps fell silent. But if we moved individually, Liam fetching water, Marcus adjusting a tent peg, the sound followed, precise, deliberate, almost sentient. Sleep didn't come. I lay awake listening to the forest breathe, imagining our movements being recorded, replicated, studied. I imagined footsteps tracing our past, predicting our next action. By the third night, the figure was audacious. One of us would step away from the fire. A pause, then a step in perfect unison behind us. I turned with the flashlight. Blackness. Fog. Mist rolling over moss. Nothing. And yet, the sensation of presence persisted. Elena said, "It doesn't want us. It wants to be us." I laughed. Nervously. A hollow sound. She didn't. I tried to rationalize it. Footsteps in the dark. Echoes. Night anxiety. Rain masking sounds. My pulse racing too fast. My mind reconstructing. But the details kept escalating. The next day, Liam's lighter disappeared. We searched. Fog hung low over the forest floor, dripping from branches, slicking the rocks. When we returned to the fire, the lighter was on a log, flipped open. Marcus hadn't touched it. Liam hadn't placed it. Small voice notes started appearing on our phones. From unknown numbers. Bursts of static-laden sound, faint whispering. Descriptions of our movements, our routines, observations that were impossible. She tilts her head before speaking. He scratches his chin when nervous. The blanket is always tucked in twice on her side. I dropped my phone. The rain pattered on the screen. Neon firelight reflected in the wet display. Simon. Not Simon. Not Marcus. The observer. The collector. The mimicker. We packed up. Our sleep-deprived bodies moved silently through the fog, gathering gear, dreading the darkness between trees. That night, the figure appeared in the clearing itself, just outside the firelight. I saw it as a shadow, but it mirrored Liam exactly. Stance, gestures, even the way he exhaled smoke from the campfire. I raised my flashlight. The shadow froze. It copied my flashlight movements, small tilts, adjustments. I stumbled back. "Run," Elena said, her voice sharp. We did, through mud, branches, and rain, toward our parked cars. The footsteps mirrored our panic. Every turn, every slip, every shout. I tripped. A hand caught me. Not Elena's, not Liam's. A grip familiar, calm, human, intelligent. "You're scared," it said. Calm, almost intimate. "I see it. I understand it." I looked. A figure, indistinct, mirrored me perfectly. Not a shadow, not a reflection. Flesh, breath, scent. It had been watching, learning, collecting, waiting. Police arrived the next morning. Cameras, evidence, trackers, multiple identities, AI-manipulated voices on phones, notes of past campers, patterns in forest visits. The manipulator had stalked, studied, and rehearsed our behaviors. I survived. So did Elena, Marcus, Liam. The forest was clear now, but the echo remained. I still hear footsteps when the rain taps on my apartment windows. A hum of patterns, a reminder. Obsession doesn't always scream. Sometimes it imitates. Sometimes it waits in the fog, in the reflections, in your own movements, quietly, patiently, until you notice. Trust is not a guarantee. Memory is not proof. Privacy is fragile. And survival is knowing how to walk through your own reflection without letting it consume you. Story 4. The rain had started while we were still on the highway. Thin sheets of water sliding over the windshield, neon taillights blurring into streaks of red. Fog clung to the trees like ghosts. I kept my hands tight on the wheel. The new apartment I had moved into after the divorce was supposed to be peace. Space. Silence. But silence has a weight, and after months of loneliness, any quiet was oppressive. Elena was asleep beside me, or pretending, head against the passenger seat, hair damp from the mist, lips slightly parted. I wanted to believe the peace I felt beside her was real. We had been together 3 months. I wasn't looking for a relationship. She wasn't either. We were both broken in ways the other understood. She knew when to listen. She knew when to stay silent. She knew how to touch scars without reopening them. Maybe that was dangerous. Maybe I was overthinking. We left the main road after a wrong turn, a map on my phone glitching in the rain. I was about to reroute when I saw it, a small dirt path, overgrown, almost invisible. "Should we?" she murmured. I shrugged. We followed it, tires crunching on loose gravel. The rain softened as we neared a clearing. The lake was still. Mist hovered over the surface. A wooden sign leaned against 2 trees. Asterisk, welcome back. Asterisk, no cars, no other tents. Just old fire rings, smooth stones, and trees scarred with carved names. Some old, faded, some recent. We stepped out of the car. Rain-dampened pine scented the air. Footsteps silent against the soft soil. "This is perfect," Elena whispered. I wanted to believe it. We pitched the tent, built a fire in one of the old rings. The night folded around us, the lake reflecting moonlight, distant frogs calling, wind whispering through the trees. Then I saw it, a tree with fresh carvings. Our names, Mark and Elena, 2036. I froze. "What the hell?" she said, staring at the wood. "I may be someone." "No one else is here," she said, voice tight. Her eyes scanned the clearing. Firelight danced across carved initials. E.B, M.H, dates I couldn't place. The wind shifted, whispered through the branches. We heard laughter, not real laughter. Too close, too empty. I wanted to believe it was imagination. Maybe the isolation was getting to us. We stayed awake, fire crackling, rain pattering softly on the tent. But sleep was impossible. Footsteps circling outside, soft tapping, rustle of leaves. The next morning, the sun burned through mist. Everything looked ordinary, but the carvings remained. We explored, found remnants of tents, old sleeping bags, a cooler with nothing inside, names etched in bark from decades ago. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Video message. Elena's face filled the screen. Terrified. "Help me," she whispered. I recoiled. It was impossible. She was beside me. The camera angle showed a tent, empty. Nothing else. No movement. The wind in the trees. I wanted to believe it was a prank. A glitch. Elena's phone buzzed too. Messages from strangers. Locations she hadn't shared. Songs she had hummed in private. Old nicknames only I knew. We tried rationalizing it. Maybe we were followed. Maybe someone's playing a game. But the details multiplied. Metadata from photos. GPS logs showing us in places we had only visited once. Email notifications about devices we didn't own. We returned to our apartment, but the feeling followed us. Appliances hummed differently. Floor creaks timed with our steps. Buzzing phones in the night. Shadows stretching too long against the walls. Then we noticed Max. He appeared online. Seemed innocuous. Friendly. Calm. Observant. His messages made sense of our fear. He knew routines. He knew coffee habits. Favorite songs. He even remembered our birthdays, though we hadn't told him. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. We let him in. Emotionally. Slowly. Trusting him felt like oxygen. He reassured us. Helped us rationalize. Gave advice about travel routes, social media privacy. Until one night, the next video appeared. Elena. Alone. terrified. Tent empty. Fire gone. "Help me," she whispered. I shook. My hands trembled. I watched the screen. Tried to reach through. It was real. The terror was real. But not hers. Max's voice came through my phone speaker. Calm. Observing. Almost proud. "You see? You can feel her fear. You can imagine it. You can live it." The cameras had been hacked. Every angle, every remote feed, every panic-inducing detail streamed to us without our knowledge. Max had created it, constructed it, engineered it. Police traced the digital footprint. Burner phones, fake profiles, AI voice cloning. Max had done this before. With other couples, other victims. He had mapped isolation, vulnerability, trust, and turned it into a tool. The confrontation happened in a rain-drenched clearing months later. We led officers to the hidden cameras. Max surrendered. Calm. Observing. No struggle. Evidence collected. Hacked devices, AI-generated voice files, metadata, social media manipulations, burner phone chains. We survived. We rebuilt. Higher floor. No devices connected to the internet. Curtains drawn. Footsteps now sound in the hallway, not paranoia. But the weight remains. The lake and the campsite exist in memory. The carved names haunt the trees of my mind. Rain tapping windows. Shadows stretching across empty rooms. Appliances humming like breaths that are not mine. Trust is fragile. Privacy is architecture. Obsession is a weapon that feels like care. We survived, but we remain altered. The forest taught us, some places, some people, are designed to manipulate memory, fear, and guilt. And even after escape, the echoes follow. Because control can hide behind comfort. Fear can hide behind love. And safety is only ever an illusion until we build it ourselves. Story 5. The night we went camping, the city followed us. Not physically, but in pieces. A strip of neon from the gas station still glowing behind my eyelids. The sour smell of burnt coffee from the highway cafe. My phone buzzing in my hoodie pocket every few minutes, even after the signal died. The memory of rain on apartment windows, of my mother crying quietly in the kitchen, of my father's new house across town where everything smelled like paint and someone else's candles. I was 16, old enough to know people leave, young enough to keep blaming myself. My parents had separated in March. By October, I had become a quiet person. Not shy, not peaceful. Quiet in the way a house is quiet after furniture has been removed. That was why Mia invited me camping. "You need air," she said. "I have air. You have bedroom air. Sad air." She was right. So I went. There were 5 of us. Mia, loud and warm. Drew, who filmed everything for his channel. Sam, who carried too many flashlights because anxiety made him practical. Harper, who had transferred to our school 2 months earlier and somehow always knew what to say without making it sound like advice. And me, Ellie. Harper sat beside me in the back of Mia's brother's old van while rain streaked the windows and distant streetlights smeared gold across the glass. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. She didn't push. That was the first reason I liked her. Most people treated sadness like a locked door they had to kick open. Harper just sat beside it. At the campsite, the forest was black and wet and breathing. Pine needles softened our footsteps. Fog moved between the trunks and pale sheets. Somewhere far off, water rushed over stones. The air smelled like soil, smoke, and cold leaves. We built the fire badly. Drew made fun of us. Mia threw a marshmallow at his face. Sam kept checking the weather app, even though there was no service. Harper smiled at me over the flames. "You hate your birthday," she said. I looked up. "What?" "Sorry." I guessed. She glanced at the little bracelet on my wrist, the one with the silver charm shaped like a moon. People who wear sentimental things usually have complicated dates. My birthday was the next day. I hadn't told anyone. Not this group. Not out loud. I told myself it was a lucky guess. Maybe I was overthinking. The fire clicked inside. Smoke lifted into the branches. Drew's portable speaker played soft jazz because he thought it made the vlog cinematic. The music sounded strange in the woods, too smooth for a place full of insects and damp bark. Around midnight, the rain started again. Not heavy, just a slow tapping on tents and leaves. We were half asleep around the dying fire when we heard it. A child laughing. Small, bright, close enough to make my skin tighten. Everyone froze. The laugh came again from beyond the tree line. A little farther this time. Mia sat up. "Was that a kid?" Sam whispered. "There shouldn't be kids out here." Drew grabbed his camera. "Don't," I said. He lowered it, embarrassed. The laugh floated through the trees again, soft and quick, like someone running while trying not to be caught. Harper stood first. "If someone's lost, we can't just ignore it." Her voice was calm. "Responsible. Safe." So we followed. 5 flashlights cut through fog. Rain tapped leaves above us. Our shoes sank into mud with soft sucking sounds. Branches scraped our sleeves. Somewhere in the dark, the child laughed again. Always ahead. Always moving. "Hello," Mia called. "Are you lost?" No answer. Just laughter. Then a pause. Then my phone buzzed. No signal, but a notification appeared anyway. Unknown number. "Happy almost birthday, Ellie." I stopped walking. Harper noticed. "What is it?" I showed her. Her face changed, but only slightly. "Probably Drew messing with you." "It's not me," Drew said too quickly. I wanted to believe that. A prank was better than the alternative. We kept going. The laugh moved deeper into the forest. At some point, the trees began to look the same. Black trunks, wet leaves, fog, our flashlights catching our breath in silver clouds. Then the child's voice sang. Not words, just a tune. 4 notes. My stomach went cold. It was the song my mother used to hum when she brushed my hair before school. Back when my parents still spoke to each other softly. Back when birthdays meant pancakes and paper crowns. I had never told anyone that song. Not Mia. Not Drew. Not Sam. Harper looked at me. "You recognize it," she said. Not a question. A statement. "How would you know that?" She stepped closer. "Because your face changed." Maybe that made sense. I told myself it made sense. The laugh came again. Farther. Sam stopped. "We need to go back." Nobody argued. That scared me more. We turned around, but the path behind us seemed wrong. No markers. No firelight. No tents. Just wet trees and the sound of our own breathing. Drew's camera battery died. Sam's flashlight flickered. Mia started crying quietly, angry at herself for it. Then Harper said, "Left." "How do you know?" Sam asked. She pointed at a broken branch, but I hadn't heard it break. After 20 minutes, we saw orange light through the trees. The campsite. Relief hit me so hard my knees weakened. Then we stepped into the clearing. And stopped. Our campsite had been rebuilt. Not restored. Arranged. The tents stood in a perfect semicircle. The fire had been relit. Our folding chairs faced inward like an audience. Balloons were tied to the cooler. Silver, blue, white. A paper banner hung between 2 trees. "Happy birthday, Ellie." My name shimmered in the firelight. On the picnic table sat a cake. Small, round, white icing, 16 candles. Not lit. For several seconds, nobody moved. Rain tapped the balloons. The portable speaker crackled. Then my mother's voice came out of it. "You're growing up too fast, Elle." I made a sound I didn't recognize. The recording continued. My mother laughing softly. My father in the background. Me younger, maybe 8, yelling that I wanted the first slice. Drew whispered, "How is that playing?" Sam grabbed the speaker and turned it over. A second device was taped underneath. Not ours. A black box with a tiny blinking light. My phone buzzed again. "You missed feeling chosen. I made sure you wouldn't tonight. Asterisk, asterisk." Mia whispered, "Ellie, who is doing this?" I looked at Harper. She looked back. Calm. Too calm. Then she said, "Don't make this worse by deciding too fast." The sentence was gentle, but it landed like a hand around my wrist. The speaker changed voices. My father now. Not exactly him. Almost him. I'm sorry, Ellie. I didn't know how to stay. My chest folded inward. The voice was wrong around the edges. Too smooth. Too clean. AI. I had heard clips like that online. People making dead singers perform songs they never sang. People making teachers say things they never said. Someone had cloned my father's voice. I looked at Harper again. You did this. Mia turned. What? Harper's eyes softened. You were hurting. That's not an answer. You kept posting like nobody noticed. The forest went still. Only rain. Fire. The distant rush of water. Drew stepped back from her. Posting where? Harper smiled faintly. Everywhere. Little things. Sad songs. Old photos. Birthday captions deleted after 2 minutes. People think deletion means disappearance. My skin felt too small for my body. I remembered her first day at school. Harper with the soft voice and thrift store jacket. Harper saying she had transferred because her mother changed jobs. Harper sitting next to me in English. Harper following my private account after Mia added her to the group chat. Comfort can be a costume. I understood that too late. Sam reached for his phone. Harper said, "There's no signal." I checked. You checked? Mia said. Harper's face changed then. Not dramatically. Just enough. The warmth drained away. I planned. The child laughed again from the trees. This time I heard the speaker hidden above us. Drew grabbed the cake and knocked it off the table. It hit the mud with a wet sound. Inside the icing was another device, wrapped in plastic. A recorder. A tracker. Maybe both. Harper watched it fall with quiet disappointment. You didn't have to ruin it. Mia shouted. Are you insane? Harper tilted her head. No. I'm attentive. That word made me cold. She looked at me, only me. Your friends forgot your birthday last year. Your parents were too busy destroying each other. You cried in the bathroom during lunch. You posted one photo of the moon and wrote, I wish someone remembered me without needing a reminder. My eyes burned. I deleted that. I know. Something moved behind the trees. Another person? No. A tripod. A camera hidden between branches, red light blinking. Drew saw it too. She's recording us. Halpil sight. Not for strangers. For who? I asked. For proof, she said, that people become honest when they're afraid. A siren sounded faintly in the distance. Very faint. Harper turned toward it. That was when Sam whispered, my emergency beacon. He had brought it because anxiety made him practical. Because fear sometimes saves you. Harper looked at him with sudden hatred. You activated it? Sam's voice shook. When we first heard the laughing. For the first time, Harper seemed young. Not brilliant. Not powerful. Just a girl caught inside something she had mistaken for control. Then she ran. Into the trees. Police and park rangers arrived 20 minutes later, following the beacon coordinates. Flashlights flooded the clearing. Adults in rain jackets asked questions we answered badly. They found speakers hidden in branches. Cameras strapped to trunks. A Bluetooth relay in a waterproof box. Burner phones. Printed screenshots from my deleted posts. Audio files clipped from videos my mother had uploaded years ago. They found Harper an hour later, near the access road. She did not fight. She only asked if I had heard the last recording. I hadn't. I never asked what it was. Later, we learned Harper wasn't her real name. Her name was Lillian Greer. She had done versions of this before. Not in forests. Not always birthdays. Sometimes sleepovers. School dances. Memorial pages. She collected lonely people online and built experiences around their wounds. Police called it harassment, stalking, identity manipulation. Her therapist called it compulsive fixation. I called it theft. She had not wanted to hurt me in the way people understand quickly. She wanted ownership of my sadness, my memories, my reaction. That was worse, because bruises can be photographed, but someone rearranging your inner life leaves no clean evidence. For weeks after, I slept with the lights on. The apartment sounded different. The refrigerator hum became a warning. Rain on windows became footsteps. My phone buzzed and my whole body answered before I did. Mia stayed over twice. Sam sent me a new emergency beacon as a joke, then apologized, then sent a better one. Drew deleted all the footage from that night without being asked. On my birthday, my mother made pancakes. My father called. Neither fixed anything, but both remembered. Sometimes I still hear laughter in trees. Not real laughter, memory laughter. The kind your brain plays when the world gets too quiet. I used to think privacy meant hiding secrets. Now I think privacy means owning the shape of your own pain. No one gets to enter it with hidden speakers and call it care. No one gets to study your loneliness and mistake access for love. Trust is not believing someone because they know the right details. Sometimes the right details are stolen. Sometimes comfort is rehearsed. Sometimes the person who remembers your birthday is not the person who loves you. They are only the person who found the wound first. Story 6. Rain followed me for hours before I even left the city. Neon signs blurred into streaks of color across the wet asphalt. My car radio hummed a soft jazz station, but it felt hollow. Apartment silence had become too familiar. I'd spent months after the breakup tracing the edges of a life that no longer fit me. Empty cupboards, cold showers, conversations with walls. Therapy helped, mostly. But grief, residual, sharp, quiet, hung in my chest like a stone. I drove north, past the city's gray riverfront, past the old cafes I once lingered in, to a place I hadn't been before. A lake tucked between hills, still and silent as glass. The GPS ended at a dirt track, muddy and narrow. The woods pressed close on either side. I parked, feeling the solitude like a pulse in my ears. I carried only what I needed: tent, backpack, a thermos, and my thoughts. The lake stretched ahead, perfectly flat. Fog hovered over it, delicate and trembling, as if the air itself were afraid to disturb it. My reflection in the water was sharp, too sharp, like a photograph waiting to blur. I pitched the tent at the edge, close enough to hear water lapping at rocks, but far enough to feel safe from whatever might swim unseen beneath the surface. Night fell like velvet. Rain began to tap lightly on the tent, then heavier, drumming a cadence I couldn't ignore. I lay in the sleeping bag, listening, the subtle crack of branches, distant waterfowl calling, my own breath repeating inside my chest. The reflection stared back at me, still, perfectly still. I fell asleep thinking it was just me, overworked, hyper-aware, watching the water as if it could answer my questions. I woke around 2 a.m. to a movement. Not the wind, not the rain, something deliberate. I unzipped the tent a crack. My reflection in the lake smiled. I hadn't. I froze. My heartbeat clattered like hail on the tent. Rain masked the sound of my shallow breaths. I leaned closer. The reflection tilted its head slowly, as if observing me the way I had observed it all evening. I closed my eyes, told myself it was a trick, my mind playing games after too much isolation. I fell back into fitful sleep. Morning was gray. Fog thickened around the shore. I stepped out of the tent and froze. There, on the edge of the lake, inside the water, unnaturally still, stood a figure. My figure. Me. Watching. I swallowed hard, the sound loud against the eerie quiet. I ran, tripping over roots and rocks. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from someone I didn't know. You finally noticed. No number. No contact. Just words. I drove back to the city, headlights cutting through wet fog, thinking I could leave it behind. But by evening it began again. My email account had a folder I didn't create. Photos of me, taken that very morning at the lake. My tent, my boots, my reflection. No one else was in the frame. I started noticing the impossible details. Someone knew my favorite coffee mug. Someone knew the song I listened to on repeat while driving. Someone knew the exact moment I checked my rearview mirror. And then she appeared. Her profile on a dating app, Elara. She messaged me before I even opened the app properly. You look like you're carrying too much. I hesitated. Loneliness is persuasive. I wanted to believe she was just comforting, attentive. She knew what to say when to say it. Subtle gestures, quiet understanding. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. Over the next few days, her presence crept in. She knew when I left for work. She sent small gifts I never ordered. A thermos, a rain jacket, a playlist of songs I liked but never shared online. She referenced memories no one else could know, personal details. My old nickname from college, the scar on my wrist from an accident I'd never mentioned aloud. Each time I rationalized. She could have researched me online. Maybe someone just observed my routine. It's harmless. Then the photos started arriving. At first, just me reflected in the puddles outside my apartment. Then my bedroom at night, the angle impossibly precise. Then a short video. Me asleep, my chest rising and falling under the blanket. I called the number that had texted me from the lake. A voice answered. Calm. Observant. I see you, she said. You're easier to study than you think. The voice was unnervingly intimate. Each word measured. Each pause deliberate. I tried to retreat. Changed passwords, deleted apps, avoided social media. But every action seemed anticipated. My devices buzzed with notifications I didn't expect. Messages from burner accounts referencing moments that happened seconds ago. I began seeing her in public. Cafes, grocery stores, even at my office window. She never approached, never acknowledged me, just watched. The spiral continued. My reflection began to betray me. Small changes, a smirk I hadn't made, head tilts I didn't perform, hands gesturing where mine stayed still. My own mirror became a place of terror. My apartment was no longer mine. Every creak, every hum from the refrigerator, every distant siren felt like a countdown. Sleep became impossible. I left the city for another weekend at the lake, thinking if I returned to the source, I could understand it. The water was smooth as glass, my reflection waiting. I pitched my tent, alone this time. Fog swallowed the edges of the world. Night fell. I stared into the water. The reflection moved first. I did nothing. It smiled. I vomited in the mud. My phone buzzed. A message. We've missed each other. I scrambled for my pack, but the reflection was closer. Standing at the water's edge. My own face looking back from the lake, smiling like I hadn't. I ran. The police were patient. Detective Alvarez listened without judgment. He explained how surveillance could be digital, psychological, and physical. Cameras, AI voice cloning, burner phones, fake profiles, metadata tracking. Evidence mounted. Emails, photos, messages, all leading to Alara. Multiple victims, multiple identities. A long-term campaign of obsession and manipulation. When they arrested her, she smiled softly. You let me in, she said. You wanted to believe the world was comforting. Back in my apartment, I sit by the window at night. Rain taps the glass. My phone vibrates. I check it, knowing nothing is there, but the muscle memory is relentless. Humming appliances, distant traffic, the creak of my floors, all sharpened. I know the lesson. Trust is earned, not assumed. Observation is not love. Attention is not comfort. Privacy is fragile, and boundaries must be rebuilt constantly. The lake is gone from my daily life, but I see it in my reflection sometimes. Not always perfectly still. And I remember, a reflection is not a self. It's an echo. It can smile without feeling. It can watch without caring. And it can wait. Story 7. Rain fell in sheets the moment we left the trailhead. Not drizzle. Not soft mist. Full, violent, hammering down on the tents we'd packed, on the muddy paths, on our soaked boots. I tucked my hood tighter, smelling wet pine and electricity, feeling the storm press against my skin like a memory I couldn't escape. I hadn't wanted to come. Not really. Divorce papers still smelled faintly of ink and formal guilt on my kitchen counter. My apartment hummed too quietly at night. Rain tapped against the window while neon signs from the cafe below cut across the ceiling like red and blue scars. Sleep came, but it was thin and brittle. I wanted to disappear. The forest seemed like an honest place to try. Maya and Eli convinced me. Friends, or people who had been my friends once. Now, I wasn't sure if they knew me, or just the version I allowed them to see. nor joined at the last minute. Practical, quiet, protective in a way that felt like a shield I didn't know I needed. We hiked for hours before the storm swallowed the path. Mist rolled in, thick and sticky. Footsteps slowed. Phones died. The trail map blurred in our hands. I thought about how small I felt, like a single droplet in a river of trees, carried somewhere unknown. The storm was relentless. Thunder rumbled low, vibrating through the soil. Wind snapped branches against each other. Rain streamed down our jackets, finding every gap. We found a clearing and set up camp, shivering and wet. The fire was fragile at first. I fanned the flames while Maya and Eli argued quietly over the order of sleeping bags. Nor hummed softly, setting up a tarp. Time was supposed to be normal. But at 11:47 p.m., our phones blinked. All three of them. 11:47. Then the next second, 12:47. I thought it was a glitch. Maybe the storm had scrambled the signals. A power surge. A cosmic joke. Did we just skip an hour? Eli asked. I shook my head. Probably nothing. Let's not think about it. But we all knew better. The missing hour wasn't noticed until morning. We told ourselves we had slept through it. Exhaustion was a good excuse. But exhaustion didn't explain the video we found on Eli's phone. Automatic recording. Timer triggered without him touching anything. We sat, frozen, staring at the screen. The fire burned. Rain pattered outside the tent. Mist clung to the edges like ghostly curtains. And there we were, calm, sitting by the fire, talking, smiling, gesturing. No memory of it, none. And yet, in the video, there was someone else. Not visible, not in frame, but we spoke to them, turned toward them, referred to them by name, laughed at jokes that weren't ours. I pressed pause, rewound. The grainy image flickered with shadows. My chest tightened. My fingers shook. Who? Maya whispered. Who is that? We didn't know. I told myself we were hallucinating. Maybe we all nodded off, dreamt together. Shared hallucination, I said, nor didn't look convinced. She had never liked the dark this much. Never liked storms this much. Never liked silence so loud. We replayed the footage. The stranger wasn't there. Not on camera. But every word we said, every laugh, every motion seemed directed. A conversation had happened that we could not remember. I noticed details. Small things. The way Eli touched his water bottle exactly like he does when nervous. How Maya's hair fell over her eyes in the same pattern. Noor's lip quivered the same way she does when lying to protect someone. It was us, but not. I wanted to believe it was a glitch. Maybe a prank. Maybe someone hacked us from the parking lot, hidden in shadows. Maybe we were imagining it. I told myself it made sense. I wanted it to. The next day, the forest seemed alive. Every snapped branch sounded deliberate. Footsteps not ours echoed behind us, then vanished. Mist hugged the trees like a second layer of reality. My coat dripped, but the cold felt hotter somehow. I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. Every time I looked at a tree, I expected a face. Every time the wind shifted, a whisper might follow. That night, we tried to sleep. Phones dead, batteries drained. No signal. The fire barely held. I lay awake, counting. Rain. Footsteps. Breathing. Wind through leaves. Floorboards in our tent creaking like someone pacing. Maya stirred. Whispered my name. Eli muttered under his breath. Nor pressed closer. Then a sound, camera click. Soft. Mechanical. Familiar. Somewhere inside the tent. Or outside. Or both. The third day, we hiked to a ranger station. We needed answers. Someone to explain the missing hour. Someone who could explain the recording. The ranger was friendly. Calm. Attentive. Explained the storms could affect GPS and phone timers. Explained how animals sometimes triggered automatic trail cams. He smiled like he knew we were scared, but in no danger. And then I saw it. On the corkboard, a stack of old footage, labeled with names. Dates. Photos. Locations. All hikers who disappeared, who had reported strange things, who had recordings like ours. And one name, Daniel Crow, missing since 2003. Hiker, alone, last seen near this forest. Video footage found in a recovered camera, him talking, laughing, speaking to someone invisible. I felt the blood drain from my face, nor noticed first. This is our video, isn't it? The ranger's expression shifted slightly. Calculated, observant, calm, too calm. You found the recordings, he said softly. You saw the other side. We realized then, this was not an accident, not a storm, not hallucination, not a glitch. Someone had recreated the forest, the campfire, our exact positions. Watched us, studied us, built a ritual, a missing hour, so we would speak to an invisible presence. So we would make a recording, and the recording would prove it. The storm had been a cover, the forest a stage. He or they knew our routines, what songs we loved, the way we argued, the way we laughed, every private habit exposed, every subtle reaction catalogued. We ran, phones dead, rain in our eyes, branches scraping skin, mist clinging, footsteps behind, not chasing, guiding. Police found us hours later at the edge of the forest. Cameras, burners, metadata, tracking devices hidden in trees, under rocks. Every step we had taken recorded, reviewed, and played back by someone who had waited for us. For the storm, 4:11:47. Eli collapsed. Maya shook silently. Noor's hands bled from gripping rocks. The investigation revealed the truth. Daniel Crow's spirit was not supernatural. His methods were meticulous. A long-term obsession, stalking hikers who vanished or seemed to vanish during storms. Using technology, timing, shadows, and psychological pressure to observe, catalog, and manipulate. We survived, physically, but nothing else. Even now, nights when rain taps against my window, neon reflecting across the ceiling, I check the time. 11:47, 12:47. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. I don't answer. I remember the fire, the invisible guest, our voices calm, speaking to nothing and someone at the same time. I remember realizing that someone could create a missing hour, could create an illusion so precise it convinced us we had lost time. And I know now, attention is not care. Observation is not affection. Boundaries are not always respected. Safety is not guaranteed, even in the forest, even in the storm. Some people study wounds to understand patterns. Some people study them to control you. I survived, but the missing hour survives too. Waiting, watching, and I will never trust time or the dark quite the same way again. Story 8. Rain slicked the mountain road. Each drop tapped the windshield like a slow drum, echoing the ache I carried in my chest. I'd left the city behind, apartments too small, streets too bright, memories too heavy, and come here with my family for what I hoped would feel like healing. Grandfather drove slowly, eyes on the road. His hands gripped the wheel with quiet authority, the way people hold on to things that might disappear. Behind me, my sister whispered to my mother. My father hummed an old tune from the dashboard radio, faint jazz drifting between the windshield wipers' rhythm. I wrapped my hands around my knees, trying to hold myself together. My chest still bore the bruises of Marcus, emotional, silent, but every city skyline, every apartment corner, whispered him back into my thoughts. I told myself this trip, this forest, could erase some of that. Maybe distance would dull the pulse. The campsite smelled of wet pine. Fog rolled between the trunks like ghosts. Our tents went up near a small creek, water gurgling faintly beneath branches dripping rain. I watched the fire pit glow under grandfather's supervision. Orange tongues of flame reflected in puddles. Shadows danced, flickering against canvas and trees. That night, as we gathered around the fire, grandfather's voice was low, measured. "Don't follow it," he said, eyes fixed on the dark tree-line. Long ago, campers saw the red lantern. Those who followed never came back. Red lantern. I shivered. Rain had stopped momentarily, but the forest smelled damp and secretive. A distant owl called. Branches creaked overhead. My hands were still wet from stacking logs. "I don't see anything," my sister said, a hint of defiance in her voice. "You will," Grandfather replied, calm, as if he had already seen too much. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was a trick of the firelight, a reflection in the mist. A small red glow between trees, moving slowly, almost deliberately. My pulse quickened. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the fog, maybe a camp lantern from another group. Maybe my imagination. I wanted to believe it. As the night deepened, the glow moved closer, a floating ember in the darkness. Every time we shone a flashlight toward it, it vanished. Every time we turned back to the fire, it reappeared, further along the tree-line. Grandfather didn't flinch. He just stared, calm, observant. His presence was grounding. But I noticed a flicker in his eyes, an acknowledgement of something beyond explanation. I wanted to believe it was a forest myth, a story meant to scare children. I told myself it made sense. Then came the footsteps. Soft, deliberate, circling the fire. Too quiet to be Liam, my father, or anyone else. Too precise. Pausing whenever someone paused. Adjusting when someone shifted. I froze. Coffee in my hand, mug warm, yet my chest turned ice. "Elena," I whispered to my sister. She sat beside me, hair damp, eyes wide but calm. She always knew when I was unraveling. "Do you hear that?" She nodded, voice low. "I do. Keep calm." Every subtle movement we made, stretching, scratching, leaning, was mirrored by the steps. Every shuffle of logs, every cough, every muttered word. I wanted to rationalize it. Maybe animals, maybe echoes. Maybe my mind was fraying from too many late nights and too much city noise. But Elena's eyes never left the tree-line. She too recognized the pattern. Second night, the lantern moved deliberately. Not toward us, not away. It hovered, shifting between the trees, always keeping us just inside its glow. A branch snapped near the lantern. A shadow fell over it, precise, human-shaped. And then it copied Liam's movements, stepping, bending, looking left, then right. I told myself it made sense. Maybe my fear was exaggerating. I wanted to believe it. We started noticing impossible details. Footprints appeared in the mud where no one had walked. They matched the shoes of family members exactly. Items we had moved earlier, the axe, the pot, a small wooden carving, were returned to their original positions, but slightly rotated as if observed, as if someone had rehearsed our habits. The lantern pulsed red when we paused too long, flickered when we whispered. It wasn't leading us. It was responding, adjusting, observing. I tried to rationalize it. "It's just a game," I muttered to Elena. She shook her head, lips tight, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. "It's learning," she whispered. "Learning." My chest tightened. The forest breathed around us, alive with fog, dripping branches, and wet earth. The red glow became a rhythm, a heartbeat outside of time. Every step we made, every glance, mirrored back at us in lantern light and silence. By the third night, the atmosphere was unbearable. Elena leaned toward me. "It doesn't want us to follow. It wants us to stay where it is safe." I froze. Safety? The lantern? I remembered Grandfather's warning. The campers who disappeared, he never said they were lost. Just that they were gone. Perhaps the lantern wasn't a lure at all. Perhaps it was a warning. The fourth night, Simon appeared. He had joined us unexpectedly, claiming to be a local hiker offering guidance. His presence was grounding, calm, careful. He knew our names immediately, asked about our habits in subtle ways. My morning stretch, Elena's preference for tea, Liam's old nickname, a song he hummed quietly. I told myself it made sense. Maybe he was observant. Maybe I was still overthinking. But that night, Simon lingered near the tree-line. The lantern pulsed red, flickering, and Simon's movements subtly mimicked its rhythm. He wasn't afraid. He was orchestrating, observing. When I called out, "Why are you standing there?" his voice was calm, measured. "I'm helping you see the pattern. You're safe because of it." Safe. The word tasted hollow. I realized too late. The lantern, Simon, the footsteps, they were all part of the same surveillance. Simon had been studying us, our routines, our fears, our patterns. Every subtle habit noted, every reaction recorded, every whispered word cataloged. The climax came suddenly. We were packing to leave when Simon's calm demeanor fractured. The lantern pulsed wildly in the fog. Footsteps encircled us faster, mirroring every motion. The red light cut through the mist, revealing the tree line filled with watchers. Not shadows, not ghosts, but recorded echoes of our own movements. Police arrived after frantic calls, tracking devices, and a network of burner phones Simon had left behind. Cameras in trees, AI-manipulated voice notes, metadata from photos, all proof of the surveillance and manipulation. Simon had crafted an environment to make us doubt reality, to observe fear and obedience in its purest form. We survived, but the forest, the lantern, the footsteps, they remained burned into memory. Every shadowed corner, every reflection of light on wet leaves reminded me of observation, control, and the delicate illusion of safety. Even now, back in the city, rain tapping on my apartment windows, soft jazz through the speakers, I feel it. The pulse of awareness, the weight of being watched, the fragile line between observation and obsession. Trust is not given. Privacy is not guaranteed. Safety is a reflection of vigilance. The red lantern didn't lure. It warned. And sometimes, survival is understanding the warnings before it's too late. Story 9. The rain had started before we even reached the campsite. Thin, relentless sheets that blurred the road and turned streetlights into ghostly reflections. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly. The apartment I'd left behind, the life I'd left behind, felt far away, but so did peace. I had moved to this city 3 months ago after my breakup with Claire. Not the big, dramatic breakup that people talk about, just the slow erosion of trust, the quiet cruelty, the way someone can make you apologize before speaking. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just left. I wanted isolation. I wanted silence. I got it. My friend Laura had convinced me to come camping for the weekend. Fresh air, no phones, no schedules, she said. She was calm in a way I envied, attentive without being intrusive. We arrived late, the campsite unmarked on any map. A narrow trail led us to a small clearing by a lake. Fog clung to the water like smoke. Old fire rings lay scattered. Moss-covered stones. A wooden sign leaning against a tree read, "Welcome back." I should have left immediately, but I wanted to believe it was harmless. We pitched our tents. Rain softened to a drizzle. Inside the nylon walls, the sound of water hitting fabric was hypnotic. The lake was black glass. Mist hovered over the trees. Footsteps in the underbrush. Probably deer, maybe nothing. Laura and I lay in our sleeping bags, close enough for warmth, but far enough to avoid conversations we weren't ready to have. I tried to sleep. Around 2 a.m. I woke. The tent was silent except for rain on the fabric and my shallow breathing. Lara's sleeping bag twitched. Barely. I whispered her name. No answer. Then a voice came from outside the tent. Soft. Familiar. Why is someone in my spot? I froze. It was Laura, but she was outside. I fumbled with the zipper, peering into the fog and darkness. Empty. Just the lake reflecting the clouds, a tree bending in the wind, the faint glow of my headlamp. I told myself it was a hallucination. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe isolation. Maybe the storm was playing tricks. I wanted to believe it. Later, when Laura returned to the tent, she laughed softly. Sleepwalking? I asked. She shook her head. I never left. My stomach nodded. Over the next hours, strange details emerged. Subtle at first. A note slipped under the tent flap with my initials. Footsteps outside when she was awake and still. A soft humming, like someone imitating the tune I'd been whistling earlier. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe animals. Maybe the wind. Maybe I was overthinking. By morning, I noticed names carved into a tree near our campsite. Our initials, side by side, dated a decade in the future. I laughed nervously. Someone's got a sense of humor. Laura didn't respond. Her eyes scanned the forest. That night, After a muted dinner over the fire, I received a text. Unknown number. I see you both. I dropped my phone. The rain had picked up, tapping rhythmically on the tent. Footsteps outside, humming closer. I woke Laura again. We stayed awake, back to back, listening to the storm and each other's breathing. My mind spun with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Weeks later, the patterns escalated. Phones buzzing at precise times, devices accessing our locations without permission. Emails containing photos of things we hadn't posted, our toothbrushes, our backpacks, our fire pit. I told myself it made sense. Maybe someone knew the campsite. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe I was overthinking. Then Max appeared online. Calm, observant, attentive. He knew our routines, habits, favorite songs, even nicknames we hadn't used in years. He never pressured. He simply observed and suggested. I can help you make sense of this, he typed. I wanted to believe it, and I did. Then the next video appeared. Laura, terrified, tent empty. Someone's in my sleeping bag, she whispered. The terror was real, but not hers. Max had been streaming through hacked cameras. Every sound, every movement, every panic-inducing detail had been orchestrated. He had built a trap of guilt and fear so intricate it made us question our own perception. Police traced devices, metadata, burner phones, AI-generated voice files. Max had done this before. Other couples, other victims. Long-term obsession disguised as help. The confrontation was methodical. Police entered the forest, discovered hidden cameras, coaxed Max out. No struggle. Calm. Observant. Proud. Evidence. Hacked devices, AI-generated voice files, meticulous tracking, logs of obsession. We survived. But the forest, the storm, the sleeping bag, they never leave. Rain taps on the windows, shadows linger, and every humming appliance reminds me that someone can observe, even when they aren't there. Trust is fragile. Privacy is architecture. Obsession is a weapon masquerading as care. We survived, but we remain altered. Our minds are landscapes mapped by fear, and memory is no longer safe territory. Even silence carries sound. Even comfort can hide control. Even sleeping bags can hide a presence waiting for you to notice.